So in this video, I want to talk about lazy loading because it's now possible to lazy load images and iframes using HTML only. You don't need JavaScript anymore. So with lazy loading, only images and iframes that are either above the fold or close to being above the fold are loaded. And in case you are not aware, the fold is the point at which the page is no longer visible to the user. So this would be right down here, this text at the bottom, and this is now moving the fold downwards. So lazy loading, it has many benefits. It's less load on the server because only images and iframes that are seen by the user or close to being seen by the user are loaded. And from the user perspective, it can increase initial page loading speed because fewer external resources are loaded initially. So this is especially useful for enhancing the web experience of users with a slower internet connection. Also related to the previous points, this is helpful with SEO. So Google now uses page loading speed as a direct ranking factor. So lazy loading can help to improve this initial loading speed potentially significantly, dependent upon how many images or iframes you have on your pages. So before now, you would have needed some programming heavy JavaScript solution to do lazy loading, either a third-party library or script, or you could have programmed that functionality yourself. But now it's supported by HTML and importantly by all major browsers as well. And it's very easy. All you need to do is add a loading attribute to an image, like so, and set the value of this to lazy. So now I'm going to just copy this. So all of our images will load lazily, and that's it. Your image, or if you do this to an iframe, will now load lazily with the associated benefits I mentioned previously. So before I move on to demonstrate this working, I just want to mention that there are two other options for the loading attribute. You can set that to eager, in which case a resource will load immediately, or auto, which will put the decision in the browser's hand. So in most cases, when you apply either one of these, the image will be loaded immediately like it would without the loading attribute. So these are not used so often. The one that's really useful is this lazy value that will lazily load images and iframes. So to demonstrate lazy loading in action, I've created this very long lorem ipsum text. And this is supposed to represent an article that you may have on your page. And then the images that I've set to lazy are below the fold. They are at the bottom of the text. Now I'm going to remove the lazy loading attribute from all three of them. So you can see initially how these load without lazy loading applied. So I'm going to save this and head over to the browser. And I'm going to open my inspector tools, and I'm clicking on network here, and I'm disabling any cache, so there's no memory of the images. Now if I go to the top here and I refresh, now you'll see if we look at what did load, and I'm going to click on images specifically here, you can see that the images down the bottom, which are JPEGs, all three of them loaded. So these images are not very large, but they do contribute to the overall size of the resources that have to be loaded initially on this page. So you can see here 151 kilobyte resources loaded, and if I scroll down, you'll see that no new resources are loaded as I go down the page, and we'll see in a moment that's different with lazy loading. So the key point is that I scrolled down there to see the images, but I may just read half of this article and then click off somewhere else. And it was a waste of resources, both on the user and the server side, to load those images. So we are risking a slower initial page load for images that the user may not see at all. And when we apply lazy loading, so I'm going to go back and apply that now. So when we apply this, we only see the images when they are almost coming into view, so when they are close to the fold. So if I go down the page, you'll see that nothing has loaded yet, no images, even though we have these 3 images at the bottom of the page, and the browser is going to load these images when they almost reach view. So we're being very efficient in terms of how we're loading our resources. And now you can see that everything has loaded. So as far as the user is concerned, it's the same experience, but we only load the images if it's necessary, if the user is close to seeing them.